Welcome to another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon. Grab your popcorn, your beverage or your drink of choice, cup of tea, maybe a cup of coffee, glass of red wine. Don't forget the Kool-Aid for the kids. Call your mama and your papa, your grandmama and your grandpapa, your brothers and sisters, your nieces and nephews, your aunties and your nenen. Call your neighbors and your friends. Let them all know that Simon Says is on. Buckle up. We'll be right back. Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode. Welcome back. As per usual, some updates and we get right to it because the time is never enough, right? But let me first plug in for the farmers up at Woodford. They expressed their frustration. They have, and if you look on your screen, you see the condition of the farm road that they have to use. And with the rains over the past couple of weeks, it has worsened and is now impossible. They cannot use the road anymore. Now, it is alleged that the road was undermined by Reno Construction when they were doing their excavating, and the road broke. I heard there were other persons from Woodford farmers actually speaking about that road months now, if it's not a year already, right? And it has worsened, and so they are pleading for help from the government of Grenada to fix the farm roads so that they can get to their farms up there out at Woodford. I mean, look at the pictures. It's on your screen. It's really, really, really bad. Our first update is on the Grenada Asset Bank and Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell. Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell finally spoke out on the company, Grenada Asset Bank Company Limited, while he appeared on the board report on Sunday, the 21st June, 2026. Prime Minister, you were better off not speaking. Truly, you should have remained mute. Listen to this, guys.
The Grenada Asset Bank was created because we, as a government, one of the things we have to appreciate is that we operate under fiscal rules. And sometimes we have to find creative ways to be able to accomplish the things we wanted to do. And so the Grenada Asset Bank was created partly because the way in which we purchased the land is that we didn't have all the funds to pay for all of the land upfront immediately. So the seller of the land would have agreed, in a sense, to finance the land costs by allowing us to pay some of the money upfront and to pay the balance over a period of time, and by accepting government bonds in exchange for that, which will be redeemed or repaid over a period of time.
Pure lies and deception. First of all, the lands was acquired in September of 2024. Let us put that on record. September of 2024, post Hurricane Beryl, right? Because Hurricane Beryl was on the 1st of July, right? 2024. And our fiscal responsibility rule was suspended after Beryl, after Hurricane Beryl. As a matter of fact, even before the Beryl landing, in a press conference, the Minister of Finance was already talking about suspending the fiscal responsibility rule, right? Now, up until now, it still is suspended. The last time the Minister of Finance was asked about it, a few months ago, he said that not until 2027 will the suspension be removed. So, how it is the Prime Minister is using Grenada Asset Bank company as the reason they had to form the company because they wanted to abide by the fiscal responsibility rules? Not true. Totally false. And what does the fiscal responsibility rule have to do with the acquisition of assets? Zero. Nothing. But he figured that sound good. He could say that. And all of us out there going to say, oh, okay. I tell you, if some of us ain't paying attention, we doom. We doom. All lies. We want the real reason. And we've been asking for it. You stayed mute, and as I said, you should have remained mute because you raise answers now again. It is false, it has nothing to do with it, and it cannot be because the fiscal responsibility rule is suspended. You guys suspended it. It still is to date. And according to Minister Cornwall, it's not until 2027 it will be removed. Now, what did the Prime Minister have to say about the fact that Grenada Asset Bank is not a legitimate company? That's what he should have spoken about. That's a question that should have been put to him. It is not a legitimate company. And you're telling us that that's a company that purchased the lands for the government of Grenada. Do you know, Dr. Bob, that the Asset Bank company was not incorporated by a natural person who by law is supposed to sign the certificate, and that it was incorporated by the Attorney General's chambers, a place that cannot sign. It's not human. The Attorney General chambers has no life. Now according to the Companies Act, caption 58A, right? Let's hear what it has to say about the incorporation of the company. Incorporation, and that is part 2, incorporation of company under section 4, incorporation. Subject to subsection 2, one or more persons may incorporate a company by signing and sending articles of incorporation to the registrar, and the name of every incorporator, that is if it's more than one, shall be entered in the company's register of members as soon as may be after the company's registration. No individual who is less than 18 years old is of unsound mind and has been so found by the tribunal of Grenada or elsewhere, or has the status of a bankrupt, shall form or join the formation of a company under the Act. So the Attorney General chambers can fit this bill. It cannot fit it, right? If articles of incorporation submitted to the registrar are accompanied with a statutory declaration by an attorney at law that to the best of his or her knowledge and belief, no signatory to the article is an individual described in subsection 2. The declaration is for the purpose of this act conclusive of the facts therein declared. Now, my thing is here, the registrar should know that a thing cannot incorporate a company because they need to sign. And if there was no such signature, why it is the registrar accepted and gave them a certificate. Here is the certificate. Here is the certificate, right? And it says the company number, and then it says Companies Act 58A, Cap 58A, certificate of incorporation, State of Grenada, Grenada Asset Bank Company Limited, that's the name of the company, and it's here saying, I hereby certify that the above mentioned company, the articles of incorporation of which are attached, was incorporated under the Companies Act 58A of the continuous revised edition of the laws of Grenada, and it's signed by the registrar on the 24th day of August 2023, right? We have another piece of document here which gives you the name of the company and everything laid out. I'm going to put it up on the screen, all of it for you. You can look at it and see that I am not making up this thing here. I am not making up this. This happened with at least 3 lawyers involved. And I'm saying at least because it could well be that the so-called project sponsor, that is now being called project lead, Miss St. Bernard, Miss Andrea St. Bernard, attorney at law, was involved in it. It could well be that she was a part of it too. But we know for sure the Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, the Attorney General, Cindy Daughter, and Mr. Robert Branch, the registrar, right? 4 attorneys at law. And here we have an illegal company. It's illegal. Let's hear Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell again. Let's hear what he has to say about this. Why Grenada Asset Bank? We need to hear it a second time.
Grenada Asset Bank was created because we, as a government, one of the things we have to appreciate is that we operate on the fiscal rules. And sometimes we have to find creative ways to be able to accomplish the things we wanted to do. And so the Grenada Asset Bank was created partly because the way in which we purchased the land is that we didn't have all the funds to pay for all of the land upfront immediately. So the seller of the land would have agreed, in a sense, to finance the land cost by allowing us to pay some of the money upfront and to pay the balance over a period of time, and by accepting government bonds in exchange for that, which will be redeemed or repaid over a period of time.
I did say to you that I was seeking legal help with the documents so we can make sure, because this company purchased 84 acres of land according to St. Daughter, for the government of Grenada. Our money, our lands, to build our hospital. And so we don't want no hanky-panky taking place there. We got to get it right. We got to get it right. So next week, we will have legal commentary on this matter here. Next week. Stay tuned. It's going to be very exciting because after that, we head into court. After that. Operate under fiscal rule. When it's suspended, how? How does that happen, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell? You forgot that that our fiscal rule is suspended? You forgot? Or you believe we forget? Or worse yet, you hope we're not paying attention. And did he say they did not have money to pay for all of the lands up front immediately? Did he say that? We do not have the money. We did not have the money to pay for all of the lands up front immediately. Was that you, Prime Minister Deacon, or was that Deacon Mitchell, or was that your clone? Now, which one of you said to the people in the town hall in New York that the government had paid up for the lands, no borrowing, and we paid all the money ourselves? And you were talking about yourself, right? When you said ourselves, and I'm quoting here, quote unquote, ourselves. But which I take to mean the government of Grenada. Was that you, sir, or was that the clone? You guys see for yourself. I don't know, you figure out if it's him or his clone.
I think this is important for us to understand. All of the spending, Grenada has perhaps one of the most transparent public finance accounting systems in the world. And it's always good to get comments and questions. And I think my takeaway from this is, particularly for the team at the Ministry of Finance, we will in fact detail the spend, what the spend is about, where it's been spent, so that we understand how the funding is going and which aspects relate to, in a sense, direct construction related costs, which aspects relate to finance costs, etc. So you have a clear sense of how the spend is taking place. So that's a takeaway from me and the team at the Ministry of Finance and the Project Polaris team, so that we can address the specific finance questions that would be asked. The final point I want to make about the groundbreaking. The groundbreaking ultimately is, and I want to say this importantly in a political context. One of the challenges, I think, as someone who's come into office new, that I think the public has had with government is a question of trust. And a question oftentimes of, I'll use the Grenadian word, mamagism. We want to make sure Project Polaris is a national project that transcends government, that transcends the opposition, and has to be, from our perspective, and I said this in my presentation, there is no turning back on this project. Now, we could have taken the decision to have the groundbreaking a lot later in the year, but I know what that would lead to. It would lead to those naysayers thinking this is a political gimmick because we are closer to the elections, right? This is not a gimmick, and I've made that clear. We bought this land within the first year and a half of us getting into government. We didn't borrow any money to it. We financed it ourselves in collaboration with the vendor of the land. The land was available for purchase almost 12 years before, and we didn't do so. So it's important to emphasize that while in a classic sense, if it's a house or a small project, you'd probably break ground and then immediately after all of the heavy equipment and so on will roll in. This is a far more sophisticated project that has, as I said, national implications for ensuring that we can continue to get the support. And I'm going to emphasize this. When you're a small developing nation, that's the truth. People doubt the country's ability to take on and deliver transformative projects like this. And we have an obligation.
Now, before I forget, I want to say to you, Prime Minister, that we are awaiting the details on the spending. Remember, you promised at that meeting of the $22 million that you spent in 2025 on Project Polaris. We are awaiting that detailed spending, which you promised. Now, you guys heard him. There was no borrowing. They financed the purchasing of the 84 acres of lands themselves, right? Now, in the clip on the board report, all kind of little sheepish rigmarole about they didn't have the money to pay up front and all this kind of thing, and it's speaking in low tone and locking his teeth so that we can quite understand what he's saying. So after he said they purchased the land, they didn't have to borrow, they financed it all by themselves, and in a year and a half into them coming into office, they purchased the lands. Now when he asked about the Grenada Asset Bank, he gone down in low tone with a set of lies and mama guy, mama gizzle, deception. So we're still awaiting the answer to the question, why was the Grenada Asset Bank incorporated and given our monies to purchase the lands when the government of Grenada could have done so themselves? We just want to know. The company was not the Governor General. It was supposed to be vested in the Governor General. Any acquisition of the government has to be vested in the Governor General. There was no declaration. Again, breaking the law. It was supposed to be gazetted twice. It wasn't done. Again, breaking the law. You should have hushed. I told you. You should have stayed quiet on this one. Mute. Mute. You should have remained mute. Now, this here citizen, speaking on behalf of the people, is saying that the sword turning was an election gimmick. Anything just inside a year of an election, like that is a gimmick. And you know it because you know that the election would call before one brick is laid. Forget the mamagism that's going on over there now, and then I'll bring it to you next week with the excavation and the digging of trenches, maybe to try and get the water to seep out. Forget that, because they have a tour, an island tour for the homecoming, and the first stop from Grand Ends, where they park and get into the buses, the first stop, it's Project Polaris. So they couldn't have them come in and meet this bush that was waist high the other day. So they removed some of the bush on one side, and they're doing busy excavating and digging trenches and stuff. And probably making space for the asphalt plant and the concrete batchment plant that is going on that property there. Yes, so the people of Calavini and surrounding areas better be prepared. Apparently, Namal called one of the Trinidad crooked Trinidad construction company that's glad to leave Trinidad and come up here? Apparently, they're going to be putting their concrete batchment plant and their asphalt plant out there on our property, the people's property. But I'll keep you updated with that as I get the information, right? But what we do know, Project Polaris is a gimmick. No geotechnical testing, or should I say the sword turning of Project Polaris was an election gimmick. But Project Polaris is a scheme. It's a scheme. Yeah, you're not turning back, and I agree with that because it's money making for you and your cabal. That's what it is. This medical city that you speak of. You don't want to give up part of your medical city though. Hold on. No design was done. No geotechnical testing was done. Another testing, soil testing. No contractor signed up. And you expect us to believe that you went ahead and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, if it's not millions, just so people don't see that Project Polaris is an election gimmick? Does that make sense to any one of you? Make that make sense to me. If it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck, and it quacks like a duck, it is a duck. It is a duck. And so you only now have geotechnical testing taking place from that company that came out of Trinidad. And when are you going to tell us, Prime Minister, what's going on over there with the geotesting? And the fact that it's not looking good at all. The North Star project is not looking good at all. A lot of water, more water than they thought. Because remember, the Prime Minister had given us measurements of how high they might have to lift because of the swamp. I think he said 3 feet or 9 feet or something. 3 something 9. I think it was 9 feet. Was it? I think it was 9 feet. Right? Suppose I have a clip there somewhere, you know. The update I got suggested that the geotechnical professionals out of Trinidad and Tobago has already gone down 48 feet with no sign of rock. Only water, 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 water. All water. And to even begin to mitigate, you're talking about building a mountain, really. That had to be a mountain. So far, looking at about 20 feet, the road and the land to build up. The piles that we might have to use if they decide to still put it in the swamp, because the money to do the mitigation is going to cost more than the hospital. So the piles, I'm being told, we doesn't have a truck in Grenada long enough to carry the piles off the port if they decide to go that way and import the piles to Project Polaris site. Because we're talking here, and they're still digging, they're still testing the soil, right? I think they were here for about 2 weeks, so they still have some days left. They still have some days left. Go ahead and sleep in. And I spoke about it. Why are you putting the hospital in the swamp? and your hotel on the hill nice and dry, and everything else on the other side nice and dry, the 74 acres nice and dry, but the 10 acres for the hospital, for the people of Grenada, but we put in people first, the ordinary people of Grenada, going in the swamp. And you were warned by residents at that town hall in the Wester Hall playing field. You were warned. And you said, yes, you know. And Mr. Imminent said they would decorate the river, make it a tourist attraction. But I don't think we're stupid. They will take us for fools and could talk high with their accent and lock their teeth and we just going to take what you say and believe it. Not at all. Not as long as I have the breath of life in me. I have a question. Have you already paid Perkins and Will for the designs? Because whatever you design can fit on the 20 feet or even higher mountain. It's going to take a totally different shape. So if you spend millions on that design, then we're in a hole again because we're going to have to get new designs, right? Even when we're going over on the dry side, on the city side, new designs. But you see, when you're also crooked, you're doing things back in the front. When the horse already down the road galloping, you run in and close the stable. Because in your mind, it was to trick us. It was a gimmick. It was an election gimmick. So you're doing it quick without doing it properly, without doing it in order, but all to bamboozle the people of Grenada. God don't like ugly. So we await a town hall or a press conference to bring the people of Grenada up to date on the Polaris next move. Mr. Bernard, it looks like we're heading up the hill to the hotel site. I believe the hospital is more important than any city, medical city, any amphitheater, any mall, any plaza, any hotel. And since our money is purchased, the 84 acres of lands, no issue there, right? Our land, our hospital, no issue there. We'll camp out on the 74 acres if we have to. Then we are putting the hospital in the swamp. Folks, stay tuned to Simon Says. I will bring you the updates as I receive them. Plus, your monthly update is on the way. Question. Can someone tell me, anyone, what sustainable development has an NDC administration done? And I'm talking about the NDC administration, right? Be it the Till and Thomas led, be it the George Grissom led, be it the Nicholas Brathwaite led, or the Deacon Mitchell led. What sustainable development has NDC done or have to show for the people of Grenada? Anyone of their administration, tell me, or show me rather, one sustainable capital project done by a NDC administration. From Nicholas Buffett in 1990 to 1995 to Deacon Mitchell in 2022 to 2026. Now, in between that, we had Tillman Thomas from 2008 to 2013. Of course, there was George Bizan for a very short stint of 4 months, from February the 1st, 1995 to June 22nd, 1995. So in 36 years, and I've given you full throttle, this in 23 years, MNP did nothing, which even so, MNP was never in our office for 23 years consecutively. Never. So that in itself is mama guy, is mamagism, is deception, right? So in 36 years, the NDC served for 14 years. 14 of those 36 years, NDC served. And the NNP, 22 years. They like to talk 23 years. We can type in that. Saying NNP did nothing, we all know is political gimmicks, right? Let us deal with the facts. For the 14 years the NDC spent in office, what capital project has the NDC done towards sustainable development? Anybody could answer it. Anybody show us, tell us. For 14 years, including this Deacon Mitchell administration. Government is a continuum. NDC is NDC. The name has not changed. And I heard the Prime Minister boasting on Sunday on the stage about it's the same NDC, and people tell him to change the name, and he didn't want to change the name, and rah. It is NDC, right? So from Nicholas Buffett in 1995 to Deacon Mitchell in 2026, tell us, show us, which sustainable development project the NDC did on this piece of rock, Grenada, Carriacou, and the PT Martinique. Now, a capital project is a large-scale, expensive, and long-term investment in by building, expanding, or significantly improving an organization's or government's fiscal assets or infrastructure. All this Deacon Mitchell-led administration have to show is retroactive pension, duck salary payment, bi-monthly salary payment, and minimum wage increase. Now, we'll talk minimum wage in a minute, right? We have nothing from Tillman Thomas. Well, they do a little minimum wage increase there. That is not an achievement. An achievement doesn't affect only a small portion of people in the country. The nation must be affected. The people, all of us, you, me, us, all of us must be affected for it to be an achievement. Right? And those are not achievement. Those are not, we're talking projects, sustainable capital projects. That's what we're looking for. Because LNP and do nothing. So if LNP and do nothing, what we enjoying out there, When people didn't come home for 10 and 20 and 15 years and they land and they start to drive from Point Saline, come through and they say, wow, Grenada development? Who is responsible for those developments? Pick something that NDC did so that we could say NDC is a part of that. And I need to never forget, I was at NDC for 20, almost 30 years. A card-bearing member. I was there when they were selling assets to pay salaries and to pay bills. I was there. I was there when the shushuing taking place. We do have the money, we can't do it. We do have nothing else to sell. We do. I was there when the shushuing taking place. Tell us. Retroactive pension only affect a certain demographic of persons, and in my mind, the wrong one. And they were told so too. The ones who put most of their money, they might have needed a little door or a window or a little, maybe a washing machine, and they buy that and they put the rest in the bank, and they sit down with their bank book from the penny bank, and they're watching it every day, and they're doing the calculations to make sure not a cent missing. Those were the ones. Daily, they check in their bank book, right? And therefore, the windfall that the financial advisor, Richard Duncan, financial advisor to the government of Grenada, to the Prime Minister and government of Grenada, Richard Duncan, told us to expect, never came. That windfall never happened with the pension payout. It never came. Up to today, it never came. 4 years later, the windfall still has not arrived. However, the pension payment only benefited retired public officers. What happened to the rest of us? Then there was the dock salaries. With all due respect to the teachers, illegally so. And that benefited teachers, or if you want to call them public workers, who they are. Again, the public workers. The ones who stayed away from their jobs between when they were protesting. And by the way, it would be remiss of me not to ask, what happened to the work to rule? Is that off the books now? Because there are teachers who have not received salary for more than a year as we speak. And no work to rule. No work to rule. You remember work to rule? We didn't have intercall, the schools didn't host the little fair and to raise funds. They did nothing like that. They didn't have school sports. We asking the lunatic, the ones who just be sweating and carrying on as the president of the teachers union, we're asking him, what happened to work to rule? What happened to work to rule? Teachers have not received salaries for over a year, and in some instances, more than a year. And they were asked to wear red armbands. Red armbands. Anyways, let's get back to topic. The dock salary payment only affected a percentage of teachers, public workers again. Bi-monthly salary payment is not an achievement. And to date, it's not well run, it's not smooth. People don't get salaries at the fortnight. the 2 weeks, and then they tell them, well, it will all come together at the end of the month. When the end of the month come, it's either they get or they just get for 2 weeks. Drama. But if there's a need to tick boxes, then by all means, go ahead and tick those boxes. Pension and retroactive pension, duck salary, bi-monthly. Go ahead, tick those boxes. Because for the rest, all 5 years, that's all you could talk about, right? Just don't worry. We give you that. Tick your box. And then there was the minimum wage increase. Probably the single most achievement of this Deacon Mitchell-led administration. But nothing to do cartwheels about. So where are the achievements for the rest of us, Grenadians, that are not public workers? A government achievement requires a balanced focus on measurable impact, policy outcomes, and tangible community benefits. May I say that again? Tangible community benefits. Effective descriptions connect specific administrative actions to real-world improvements for citizens, rather than simply listing broad political gains. Achievements encompass actions taken to stabilize society, improve citizens' well-being and quality of life, not just public workers, the citizens, all of us. Economic stability and long-term sustainable development. And that's what we're looking for. That's what we're trying to find out. Since you say the NMP will do nothing, let's say what you did, because we're living, with the inflation and all of that now, a lot of people are not as comfortable as they were maybe 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. Right? But we're looking for sustainable development. So let's talk minimum wage increase. It is clear that process was not well thought out, for one thing. It was a rush to tick box, right? There's no planning behind it, not enough, or should I say, enough planning was not put into the increasing of this minimum wage. A very small percentage of workers was being paid this $700 or $800. Most minimum wage workers was already receiving $1,200 to $1,500. And so, for most of them, the needle did not move. The needle did not move. Especially since the high rise in cost of living and inflation on a whole. As prices increases, every unit of currency buys a smaller percentage of goods or services, which means our money loses its purchasing power. So the amount of goods you would have gotten for $100, it's probably half as much for the same $100, right? When the overall cost of living goes up, you need more money to purchase the exact same basket of goods you were purchasing previously. Since 2022, a large cross-section of Grenadians' workforce has been living in poverty, on the edge in some cases. They lack the financial resources and the essentials to achieve a minimum standard of living. They employed but not economically secured. It extends far beyond a lack of income to include restricted access to healthcare, education, safe housing, and opportunities for social mobility. They work full-time, but still struggle to pay rent, to buy food, cover transportation, support their children, and absorb unexpected costs. Child has a broken leg, need a pair of shoes, things that they're sick, they have a bad cold, you have to take them to the doctor. Their wages do not provide a basic standard of living of dignity. The evidence suggests that approximately half of Grenada's workforce, roughly 27 to 30,000 workers, earns less than easy $1,500 per month. We hear all the time the economy is growing. Grenada is growing. The question is, who is benefiting from the growth? The bottom line is, most of us are not benefiting. The bottom line is, our minimum wage is not living wage. Let's run through a list of what the NNP did in its 22 years from 1995 to 2022, the periods between there when NNP served, with the exception of the period of 2008 to 2013. The two stadiums, the Kirani James Stadium and the Cricket Stadium, the Melville Street Bus Terminus in St. George's, the Esplanade Mall, the cruise ship terminal, the financial complex, the ministerial complex, Point Salines International Airport and its expansion, now the MBIE International, a change of name by the NDC administration, the Tillman Thomas-led NDC administration. Building houses of Parliament, Surtees Bus Terminal, Grenville Bus Terminal, the Surtees Breakwater Project, Tyrrell Bay Port Facility in Harvey Vale, Carriacou, the Guam Polyclinic, Lauriston Mini Sport Stadium in Carriacou, the General Hospital Phase 1 and 2, that's the new wing where the ER is now, upgraded Princess Alice Hospital to the first smart hospital in the OECS, built the first and only juvenile center on the island, responsible for ongoing construction of the Saloon Cultural Center, built community centers island-wide, introduced traffic lights, liberalize the telecommunication industry in Grenada, establish regulatory bodies like the NTRC, the PURC, GARFIN, FROC, instituted high-speed internet in all government schools and public spaces through the CARSIP project, digitize government services through the Digital Transformation Project, modernize customs and inland revenue. The customs, remember the Asikudo, yeah? Invested in youth the first full-fledged Ministry of Youth with funding programs and policies, built and established the Grand Bacolet Juvenile Rehabilitation and the Treatment Center to help reform youths with challenges. 8 million invested in youth and agriculture, established sewing cooperatives and small businesses for young people, established the Youth in Parliament initiative. In 2013, when the NMP returned to office, the country was in serious financial trouble. Lest we forget, the NDC administration was selling assets to pay salaries and bills. The NMP brought 5 consecutive years of economic growth. GDP growth hit 7.3% in 2014, reduced debt to GDP from 108% to below 58%. That is pre-COVID. Unpaid public sector compensation claims were cut from 110 million to 0, right down to 0, while claims processing was brought within a 60-day window. Today, this administration is hiding the unpaid claim from us, refused to put it in the budget. Millions owed to service providers and contractors, and they refuse to pay. I'm in talks with a gentleman who lost his home in Miami, Florida, because the government of Grenada refused to pay for his services, that he came down here, bought equipment, mortgaged his house to buy the equipment needed to work for this administration after burial in Carriacou and Grenada. When he was finished, the government refused to pay him. The Prime Minister said to him, "Sue us." He has a baby on the way, and he lost his home. But we'll get the meat of that eventually. We're talking. Grenada received $55 million US from CRIF insurance payout to Nawasa, Grenlec, agriculture, fisher folks, and housing for the vulnerable. Well, we know it didn't work out so as how it's supposed to happen. But through the vision and the forward thinking of the former NMP administration, they took out the policies. So that today, we should not have had to worry. So many houses in Carriacou should not have been left dilapidated as we speak. People still living on the tents, on the steps, on the houses. And you would be surprised to see the amount of houses that are abandoned, left abandoned in Carriacou as we speak, because persons are not cannot afford to redo their roofs and put windows in. So you'd be surprised. 118,000 EC dollars out of that money was for housing. Legislative fiscal responsibility. Through the Fiscal Responsibility Act, the Public Financing Management Act, the Public Procurement Act, and the Debt Management Act. The St. John's River Flood Mitigation Project, that to date, just how it was left after the last election, it is still there like that. Nothing touched. And we hear all kind of bridge stories. The minister said when they came in, it was supposed to be 2 concrete bridges, one by steels, one the humpback. The bridges were going to be too expensive, so he decided bringing in 2 metal bridges just to bolt up. He told us in the parliament that the bridges were already an island. When asked about it again, he said, well, we know if you're going to need 2 bridges, maybe 1. When asked about it recently in the Montreal town hall, Prime Minister said, we're going back to do the concrete bridges because they say the metal bridge is going to be too tall and it can't work. Well, who advised you to buy the metal bridges? Why did you? And now you're saying we have to go back, so it's going to cost us even more. He didn't want to spend the money. I think it was 30 million, he said, for one. He didn't want to spend the money for the bridges, for the concrete bridges, because it was too expensive. He wanted to buy metal bridges. No, we can't use the metal bridges, and we still have to go back to the concrete bridges. So he's thinking we're going to just do 1 bridge and leave the Humbug Bridge because it has, it is historic. All of a sudden, we're going to leave the Humbug Bridge. That Humbug Bridge, that all the debris does come down and pile up under and cause more flooding in that lower end of the bridge. Cars stick under there already, all kind of thing, when the river coming down. All of a sudden, for historic purposes, because he broke and he can't afford it. But we might have to hire purchase the bridges as well. We might just have to, right? We build Grenada's infrastructure, roads, bridges, and connect communities. Now we know that the NNP used to be called the concrete government. And we have clips of the Prime Minister saying that's a non-productive sector. And we have the Minister for MIT saying if we could eat roads with inflation, let me tell you, inflation twice as high, or maybe even more, now than when he was talking this crap about if we could eat roads and who hungry. Well, who hungry now, right? But all of a sudden, it seems like roads and so are not non-productive anymore because that's all the NDC can speak to. Some roads that they have done. They're still fighting up with the bridges that NNP left, that they started. They're still fighting up with the bridges, right? Complete major road rehabilitation across the island, including the Eastern Main Road, Grandans Road, Granite Road, the Western Main Road, 30 miles of secondary roads. Now, all these roads, the main ones, are ready to redo. That's where they're in trouble. Because the government doesn't have the money to do it. With elections coming up, they hire purchased our roads to Reno, Namalco, and Calco. All foreign construction companies. Refurbishment and reconstruction of schools island-wide to include, but not limited to, Grenville Secondary School, Grenada SDA, Vendome Roman Catholic, St. Joseph's Convent, St. George's, and St. Andrew, PBC, Presentation Brothers College, McDonald's College, TAMCC, Bishop's College in Carriacou, TAMCC, among others. Ones like the St. David's Secondary School, the St. Andrew Anglican, and the Grenada Christian Academy work are ongoing, according to the government, on these projects that was in the pipeline. This NDC administration is slowly trying to pull these out of the pipeline. Folks, there are many more I can speak of. So we await the list from the NDC that they have done. And since the NNP did nothing, let's see what you all have done. Deacon Mitchell, as political leader of the NDC, called for a list of VAT-exempted items.
We also ask that the following items be zero rated. Soap powder, baby and adult diapers, sanitary napkins, toilet paper, peas and beans, bathing soap, packet rice, smoked herrings, sardines and mackerels, and salted meats like pig snout, salt beef, and pigtail. These basic items are used by all Grenadians, and they are a staple in the case of the food items in many of our diets. We are therefore calling on the government to zero rate those items for VAT. As you know, the VAT rate on these items are 15%, which is a significant percentage. And we are asking that those items be zero rated in the first instance.
He asked for packaged rice, smoked herrings, sardines, mackerels, salt meats like pigtails, pig snout, salt beef. And that was before the shoes was on his feet. He knew all that he was asked, what he needed, what we needed as a people, what we use daily, and he asked for it. And yet for all, when he came into office, not one of those items that he asked for, he put on his list. Not one. He won the election, and here's a list of VAT-exempt items. Appendix A of the 2026 budget statement. Soya chunks, veggie patties, olive oil, canola oil, soybean oil, sunflower oil, coconut oil, red kidney beans, black-eyed peas, lentil peas, hand sanitizers, adult diapers, baby diapers, toothpaste, mouthwash, toilet paper, and inputs for local manufacturing of toilet paper, liquid soap, bath gel and hand soap, laundry soap, bars, liquid powder, all female sanitary hygienic products, including sanitary napkins, tampons and panty liners, and condoms. No packaged rice, no smoked herring, no sardines, mackerel, none of that is on his list. This guy is very funny, you know that? Very, very funny. Now, let me listen to say here. The VAT law itself came with a list of exemption and zero-rated items from VAT, which includes loose rice, flour, sugar, bread, ground provisions, vegetables, and fish, among others. A decent list, and that was done by the Tillman Thomas NDC administration. They're the one introduced the VAT. The NMP administration added in 2013, added 6 items to the list that came with the law. So that's with the sugar and the bread and all those stuff, the ground provision vegetables, right? They added 6 items, and that was salt fish, because I mean, some people gotta eat meat, right? Turkey parts, vegetable cooking oil, cheddar cheese, split peas, and electricity. All VAT exempt in the 2022 budget statement. This Deacon Mitchell-led administration, on the other hand, when they are entering in June of 2022, a month later, added back the VAT to the electricity bill, the rate, and removed sugar from the zero-rated list, and added tax VAT on sugar. They forgot all about the smoked herring, the sardine, the mackerels, and the salted meat he was asking for before he came into office. Now, the only administration that removed items from the list, and two items they remove are ones that will affect every Grenadian household, every single household on the island: sugar and electricity. Not everyone eats meat, not everyone eats flour, they use flour, not everyone use rice or carbohydrates, everybody has that. Everybody use electricity. And I do believe almost everybody use sugar, even if it's a little bit, right? This Deacon Mitchell-led administration also removed the 25% decrease in the non-fuel charge on electricity bill. This NNP, that the NDC administration, that the NNP administration had removed a 25% decrease in the non-fuel charge rate of electricity. Now, since June 2022, over the past 4 years, electricity prices has increased significantly 3 times. We just had another increase. You hear everybody bawling because their bills have doubled, in some cases even more. And now, we expect that. So the fuel charge that the government of Grenada can't do anything about. But the non-fuel charge, they can. They can. And they can remove the VAT on the electricity bill, which the NNP did when electricity bills started going up in 2022. It's gone up 3 times since. And instead of helping, they add to it. They have no mercy on the people. And businesses are closing their doors because they can't afford to pay the electricity bill. That pile up, and now they've been disconnected. We lost 2 farms, chicken farms, because of the rise in inflation and the bills, the electricity bills for one. On Tuesday, the 23rd June 2026, the government tabled the Digital Transformation Bill. It is a piece of law that they are seeking to pass to set up an agency or a statutory body that could or would control all digital services that are provided by central government and its statutory bodies. All digital services that are provided by central government and its statutory bodies. That's where we headed. So like the tax system that Inland Revenue uses, the NIS system, the medical record system, the court system, all these records and digital systems that is used to operate central government are going to come under this agency or statutory body, for want of a better word, I guess. And the state-owned enterprises, all of that, like customs as well as the Port Authority, that agency would more or less have control over all the systems. The real risk here is that the agency powers are so wide that it allows them to access private citizens' data. The agency can access your medical records. Nothing to stop them from doing so. In my mind, weaponizing it for political gains. Yes. Really, it's another election, well, not a gimmick, but we heading into an election here, and you wonder, what's the rush? Why are we in a rush with this bill, with election when election can be any time between now and June 2027. And I think there's some little grace period. I'm not sure how much that is. It could probably go into July. What then is we have a Ministry of ICT. Well, our new Minister of ICT is I believe, the Minister of Digital Information as well. Now, what this digital bill and the agency created is a legal path to get and spread information on citizens and create discord. All they have to do is set up a board of directors, and they then will have access to all the data. Added to that, this whole setup is another avenue to feed the boys. The minister appoints a CEO, Chief Executive Officer. I believe the minister is Ron Redhead. The CEO has anywhere between 1 to 3 year term that they can appoint this board of directors. The CEO gets to appoint others to add to our already over-the-top wage bill. And in the meantime, get on with the corruption whilst they try to rig the upcoming election. The next thing we would hear, they would be appointing a digital advisor and a digital ambassador. Because we have ambassador for everything we do now. We have all these ambassadors out there. Job for the boys, money for the boys. Pay attention, people. Listen for the names, Orlando Romain and Roy McEwen. And together with Ron Redhead, that's a deadly combination. Ultimate power is a hell of a thing, huh? Ultimate power is a hell of a thing. Last week, I did the piece on the horseman, and the truth is, what I really ended up doing the program for, and I mentioned it, is because of what happened on Beyond the Headlines. So I went back to come forward, and we got stuck because, of course, we ran way out of time, and you could tell from the program, it was way over, and I still wasn't finished. So I want to finish up that for you today. Right? And so let me just finish up the whole wage bill thing and go straight into it and finish that up. Now, in the period 2018 to 2022, the former administration spent EC dollars $267.1 million average annual wage bill. And that is the NNP, 267.1 million, right? This Deacon Mitchell-led administration, in the period 2022 to date, average annual wage bill, EC dollars, $334.6 million. For the 5-year period, the former administration, EC, $1.336 billion spent over a 5-year period, and that's on average. And this Deacon Mitchell-led administration, over a 5-year period from 2022, which will take us to 2027, because it's average, we can go into 2027, because it's a monthly thing, right? Basically the same every month, give or take. For that 5-year period, $1.673 billion. This Deacon Mitchell administration has spent $67.5 million more in salaries for the annual salary, 67.5 million more than the NNP did, and 337 million more in 5 years, in a 5-year period, than the NNP did. Same time span. Yeah. And that's NNP ones is not long ago, from 2018 to 2022, and NDC from 22 to 27. But let's hear Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell in opposition on wage bills.
Grenada is a very small island. The government is way too big, way too bureaucratic, way too inflexible, and doesn't get anything done. That's the truth. It doesn't get anything done. And you hear about the millions and the millions every year. I mean, I think what 19 million was allocated for PT Martinique and Carriacou in the last budget cycle. So it's 8 months now. Where is the 19 million? Right? Where's the evidence of the 19 million?
The government is too big, he said. And we're way bigger because everybody have an advisor and everybody have an ambassadorial position, and throughout whose sister, whose brother, everybody working with the government, the Prime Minister's sister working in his Ministry of Infrastructure. We have, I mean, it's just a mess, a total mess. The nepotism that is taking place and the conflict of interest, it's just a total, but here is what is a big government now. But of course, the shoes is on his feet now. Grenada has been operating in a deficit for the years 2025 and 2026. 2025, after grants, the actual deficit was 279.1 million. And in 2026, after grants, the deficit is 309.8 million, which means we are spending more than what we make. What we're making in revenues, we are spending much more. And according to the Ministry of Finance, they have projected that this will continue over the next 2 budget cycles. So we ain't get out of this deficit anytime soon. I didn't say that. The Ministry of Finance said that in their budget statement for 2026. Folks, we cannot continue like this. It is clear this Deacon Mitchell-led administration is not competent enough to manage the affairs of the country. Our economy is dwindling with no end in sight. Our middle class has reverted to the poor class. Poverty is on the rise, and the administration keep vaping. They have no plan to fix it. No wonder why our infrastructure is on higher purchase. I can go on and on. The tangible evidence or evidences are out there for us to see, to touch in some instances. But I have to return to the horseman story. So Permanent Secretary Javon Williams, along with the Chief Veterinary Officer in the Ministry of Agriculture, Kimon Cummins, was invited as guests on the GBN evening talk show Beyond the Headlines. They were to appear on Monday, the 5th of June, 2026 program. Also invited for balance was veterinarian Dr. Kenrith Carter. The program was advertised as per usual by flyer with all 3 gentlemen shown on the flyer. If you look on your screen, you'll see the flyer. Turns out that only the government representatives were featured on the program. not because Dr. Kenneth Carter opted out, but because he was asked to stand down. Here's a report from Dr. Carter as to what happened on that evening. On Friday, the 12th of June, I was invited by a representative of GBN to participate in the panel discussion on Beyond the Headlines. Scheduled to air on Monday, the 15th June, the topic was shared, the list of participants was provided, and after reviewing both, I agreed to participate. A flyer was subsequently produced and circulated. It clearly identified the host and the panelists. I was asked to arrive at the studio by 8:10 p.m. for an 8:30 p.m. broadcast. As anyone who knows me can attest, I prefer arriving early rather than apologizing later. So, despite the heavy downpour, I arrived at 7:50 p.m. and waited until 8:05 p.m. to make my dash into the building. As I entered, I noticed 3 individuals approaching the building, approaching behind me. So I held the door open. I immediately recognized the chief veterinarian officer and the permanent secretary, both dressed for television. The third individual was unfamiliar to me and appeared to be dressed for comfort rather than camera time. Only the PS offered a quiet, good evening, which I returned. My good friend, the CVO, avoided eye contact. He appeared somewhat distressed, and while I considered asking if everything was all right, the atmosphere suggested this was not the time for social calls. The GBN representative who had invited me was nowhere to be seen. My attempt to contact her through our established communication channel were equally unsuccessful. We were escorted to the studio. The set was ready. 3 bottles of water, 3 pillows, and 1 long chair. Everything appeared perfectly arranged for a 3-panelist discussion. Then things got interesting. The host entered the studio, then went back out. He then returned and informed me that the Ministry of Agriculture, DUO, said they were not aware that anyone other than persons from the ministry were going to be present. So the producer will contact me to reschedule. I expressed my discontent and followed the cue to exit the studio. The producer / GBN representative did not respond or contact me. I was not given a direct apology or a detailed explanation. No explanation, no apology, no follow-up, except a missed call. Although I don't currently believe that my participation was advertised as a ploy to attract viewers to the show without the intent for me to appear, I have lost any trust in the credibility of GBN. Since then, I have seen an AI-generated satirical video circulating online depicting the incident. To be honest, the AI version appears to have had better communication than the real event. Nevertheless, the facts remain unchanged. My take-home message is the same. Should the owner have waited to get a hard copy import permit? Yes. Was the horse pregnant? No clue. No exam report was presented by either side. Is the disease equine babiosis in Grenada? Yes. This is published by the local vet school in a pre-reviewed international scientific journal. Is the treatment of the disease in Grenada? Yes. Dr. Carter vet commonly uses it for tick control in cattle and as part of heartworms. Can humans get babesia? Yes. Not the type that the horses had. Why aren't other vets talking about this? Most of the Grenadian veterinarians are either employed by or contracted with the vet school or the ministry, and they are afraid for their job security or being victimized. Has there been recent importation of diseased animals? Yes. Most of the sheep and goats that came in from the US had multi-drug resistant GI parasites that medication in Grenada cannot successfully treat. Others came with some died from infectious pneumonia. Some tested positive for zoonotic disease, like contagious ecthymia, also known as the sore mouth, were not destroyed. Now that is a statement from Dr. Carter. So the host, Mr. Collindale, and the Grenada Broadcasting Network, GBN, asked the guest, Dr. Carter, to stand down because the guest from the Ministry of Agriculture was uncomfortable with the independent professional guest in the person of veterinarian Dr. Kenneth Carter being on the panel with them after it was advertised. Folks, this is oppression staring us in the face. What else are we going to endure under this Deacon Mitchell-led administration? In my mind, the uncomfortable ones should have been the ones to stand down. They're uncomfortable, then leave. But ultimate power is a hell of a thing. I leave you with the meaning of oppression, the cruel, unjust, or excessive use of power, authority to subjugate, restrict, or marginalize individuals or groups. It embeds prejudice within social and institutional structures, creating systems that systematically limit the freedoms, resources, and opportunities of marginalized populations while privileging others. Folks, we are not heading down a good road. So I'm going to end and leave you with some entertainment. It's been a while since I brought you some entertainment. And let's see our first clip.
Hunting this for a while, deal with them in a style. When stars align, greatness outshines all hatred in space and time. So still we rise, with grace and with faith in the morning, with chains and all. I am a backpack and I'm ready. Rubbing me backpack and I'm ready. Promoter done laughing already with a backpack and the heavy you know. They go out to the job and a payroll. All fresh like you day old. Goody job and a payroll. All fresh like you day old. Put some respect on me name. I don't want to hear. Don't give me that you want to pay. You want to pay. Put some respect on me name. I don't want to hear. Don't give me that you want to pay. Hello. You want to pay for them.
Hello. Hello. Good night.
DJ, one drop, one drop, one drop. One drop. It's our 4th anniversary. So we celebrate, we toast. I'm standing on the shape of the heart. I have a glass of red wine in my hand. And the heart beats loud, strong, and proud tonight. And so we start with a toast to you, to me, to us. NDC, let me hear you. To you, to me, to us. To the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. We toast to your success, to your resilience, to your creativity, to your steadfastness, for the prayers, the love, the support that you've shown to me and the rest of the team over the last 4 years. They call me Baby Jesus. I'll have to turn that one glass of wine into about 10,000 glasses of wine tonight. But we must start with gratitude. DJ, low me down. Thank you.
They called me Baby Jesus. The place did flood out, my friends. But you see, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, the Minister for Youth and Sport, the Minister of Education, and the rest of you okayed the destroying of the Monrouge playing field just so you can have a rally. Let's hear Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell again.
I'm sure around 12 o'clock everybody thought the place would have flooded out. I'm sure you thought the place would have been waterlogged. But look upstairs. Look up to the sky. You can see the half moon. You feel a nice grand dance breeze. So you know we have to give thanks to the Most High. We have to give thanks to the Most High. So we start there. Because when we won, I said it was a miracle. And it's only the Most High who works miracles.
The field was waterlogged, but sand and gravels and bindings and tiff, you know what, took care of that. If you look on your screen, you see the results of what was used to stop or to keep the water down, right? This is a field that is used frequently. The intersector people, they have their football tournaments, their games, their practice center. It is a field that is used all the time. Look at the state of it. He said Uncle Tilly stood firm.
So they thought we were buried. They thought we were dead. They thought they had their feet on our necks. But just as old Lazarus was risen, so too did the National Democratic Congress rise from the struggle, from the trial, from the tribulation, from the disunity, to become the movement that is celebrating 4 years in office today. And we could not have done that. So I want you to turn around and look at the entrance. Look at the heart. Look at the hands of unity. Look at the you, me, and us. It is the you, me, and us that has transformed the National Democratic Congress into the force that it is today, so that it can celebrate 4 years in office.
Rises from the trials and tribulations, from the disunity.
I will tell you a little thing about my party, because we have lived the divided you fall, and we have lived the united we stand. In 2008, after a decade in opposition, the people of Grenada elected the National Democratic Congress into office. And within 2 years of being in office, the division started. Men who had power and who couldn't even use the power started to fight for more power. Let me say that again. Men who had power, the people elected them into office. They couldn't use the power for which the people elected them. But instead of using the power to do the people's work, they started to fight amongst themselves. In conferences like that, men get thrown out, women get thrown out, legendary trade union leaders get thrown out, party general secretary get thrown out. Parliament couldn't sit because men don't have a majority. Elections were called in 2013. The party that I now led, after having a 11-15 majority in Parliament, lost every single seat in the 2013 elections. Instead of learning from the lessons and saying, let us put our differences aside. Let us come together for the people of Grenada. Let us come together for the National Democratic Congress. 5 years in opposition wasn't enough. They continued the division. They continued the fighting. Elections were called in 2018. And the National Democratic Congress, pardon my French, got its ass cut again, 15-0.
Now, would you believe that it's Uncle Tilly and Honorable Nazim Burke? These are the people he's dogging in that clip. But of course, you know, Leo can't help but lie. There were no infighting and amongst each other and disunity then. There was nothing like that then. But how would he know? He was not an NDC member at the time. He was not an NDC supporter. And he was not involved in the politics of Grenada, at least up front. So how would he have known that? But he must lie. You have to lie. It's a must. It's bound to lie, right? And to show off. But the people he dogging there, that they get their ass cut again, and all the sort of derogatory statements he's making, is people who he has around him pretending now, especially with an election coming up. And that's why he pulled some of them in. It was to get their support on board as well. Right? But in his rally on Sunday, on the platform, he spoke about the we, and we rise again from the trials and tribulations and from the disunity. Who is the we? Who is the we you're speaking about, Prime Minister? Where were you? You were nowhere wrong. You did not support the NDC. And it was the women's arm of the NDC, led by yours truly, as president of the women's arm, yes, I was, that took the bull by the horn and saved the NDC brand. we took confront, we lost the election, and in 2 weeks later, we were up at Hermitage in a storm. It was stormy weather. Got the base out, energized them in a fun day. Right? And we never stopped. It was us who prevented Peter David and his group from toppling Uncle Tilly and taking the brand. They already had a name to give to Uncle Tilly, some Christian something group, give to Uncle Tilly, while they decided they were going to take the NDC brand. So it was because of people like me, baby Jesus. You can stand on the stage and talk all this crap. And it's a fact. You can ask Uncle Tilly, ask Nazenberg, ask Glenn Noel. We were supported by those three gentlemen, the Women's Arm, but we took the lead. Let's continue.
So while Uncle Tilly might have been in governance for a short period of time, he stood for the things that were right. He never sell out Grenada. Never bring a set of corn man here. He always stood for what was right. But you see, he had some fellas that were with him, he forgave them. You see, they were involved in other periods of politics in Grenada life. They lock him up in Richmond Hill. He still bring them back. He forgive them. Uncle Tilly more forgiving than Jesus Christ. He's a perfect example of Christianity. Turn the other cheek. He still bring them fellas back in the fold. And some of them like to move from movement to movement to movement. They didn't understand patience, hard work, transparency. Your turn go come. Respect the elders. Respect the office of the Prime Minister. So they mash up the thing. And they go in another house. And they mash up the house too. And as Brother Andy said, they want to throw the pillar, the kitchen sink, the plywood, the galvanize at you. But we're happy for them. Because they name themselves after the character. They're always moving. But Uncle Tilly stood firm. He stood for what was right. And the result of what we have here today is because he stood on principle. So brothers and sisters, when I joined the National Democratic Congress, there were other suitors. We had other options. We had choices. But we understood the people who always wanted to put people first, who always wanted to put Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique first. And you have to understand, it's not just me. When Sister Corinne James, when Brother Ron Redhead, when Brother Tevin Andrews, young men and women barely out of their 20s, if they could have seen the vision that the National Democratic Congress was the best choice, he told me that the young people of Grenada understood what was in the best interest of Grenada. So they are the ones who gave us the inspiration to make sure that if they could choose the National Democratic Congress, we who are a little older must follow suit and join the National Democratic Congress as the party of choice and work to build and transform.
We're still waiting for the transformation. So I guess we have to wait for another 5 years, or maybe 10, because they said they're going to be there for the next 30 years. Interestingly, the Prime Minister stayed away from achievements on his 4th anniversary in office. He stayed away from the achievements, from the things that was happening or that are happening or that has happened. And what we should expect going forward, it was mudslinging, and every individual he can sling at. Over the past 4 years, we inherited a Grenada that was broken, he said.
But if we had not done so, they would not have been able to put Grenada on a sound footing. And so again, brothers and sisters, Over the last 4 years, we inherited a Grenada that was broken, that felt heavy, where victimization reigned, where people were afraid to speak their mind because they were afraid of what would happen to them, whether they would lose their job, whether their auntie, their uncle, their brother, or their sister would lose their job, whether people would threaten them for speaking on the radio or for asking them questions. Don't let the 4 years of freedom, of openness, or the fact that you could say anything, anywhere, don't let that forget the 4 years before. So we have to understand that we inherited a Grenada that was broken, where people had no dignity, where putting people first was not a concern. Because here's what they told you. If you pay the pension, the country go mash up. But after we pay the pension, they say they leave a pregnant treasury.
People afraid to speak. Where victimization reigns. This from Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, the leader of an administration who has victimized public workers to death. How is the president of the Public Workers Union?
At this point, I want to invoke a name. I want to say the name Imi Chitterman. If you remember nothing of my address here today, say after me the name Im Chitterman. Im Chitterman passed away last year. But even while he was on his sickbed, removed from the position that he was in that was paying him a decent salary, pushed back into a substantive post that he had not occupied for about 10 years, continued working for Grenada. Do you know who he is? The digital revolution that we are experiencing in Grenada today. Your GTax online, everything that you can do online, all of this was conceptualized and brought about by Im Chitterman and his team, me, your humble servant, being one of them. He did that as Chief Information Officer under the previous administration. But the monies, the projects that we were able to write and secure for Grenada into the millions of dollars. Mr. Lennox Andrews, Honorable Minister, you remember that? Because when you walked into the Ministry of Information, ICT in 2022, you said we have a lot of money to spend, and I want it spent. That was the work of Im Chitterman. And he died in silence, and we cried, because at the end he was treated badly. His work for Grenada was not rewarded, was not appreciated, because he was deemed political. And so I want to ask today, ahead of February 7th, 2027, that the first name that must appear on any list to be honored in our country for our independence in 2027 must be Im Chitterman, because he took charge of Grenada's digital revolution, and we are enjoying today the fruits of that intelligence and that brilliance that Grenada must award. I also want to say today, Mr. Norman Gilbert, rest in peace. Your passing was a tragedy, but the greatest tragedy was when, as a former teacher, attempts were made to revert you back to your substantive in a school in 2022. He was not a member of the PWU, but when he reached out to me as then PRO, I did what my union does. When he was denied representation where he should rightfully get it, we stood for him. We were not able to restore him as a PS, but with our advocacy through our PSC rep, we got his salary restored, and we got him a position of dignity. And the PSC then understood that you cannot strip workers of their dignity just because they have served this country under a previous administration. And all of us as public servants never allow anyone to strip us of our dignity, because we have a right to labor in this country under any government and any administration that the people of Grenada return to office whenever there is an election.
Now, here is a former colleague of one of the NDC's victims, Norman Gilbert.
Norman did not deserve the treatment he got.
But no man will continue to be in my heart. But the way in which he was treated.
It's all right. Stay here. Yeah. It's extempore in time. If you pay the pension, the country go mash up. Who said that? Who said that the country was going to mash up? No one said that. That's another lie. Now let me tell you what was said. It was said if you paid the pension, the retroactive pension, all of it as you wanted it to be paid. You were asking for that while in opposition. And if you regularize all the temporary workers, as you said you would, in a year's time in entering, it was said that you will bankrupt the country. And you found that out the hard way. How was you, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, when you found that out?
The regularization is focused on the several hundreds, if not thousands, of other persons who do not have those things. And the point that I think P.S. Marshall was making is that in order to treat with that, we simply cannot take all of them and make them established public servants for the simple reason that it will bankrupt the government. It will not be sustainable. So the discussion, the partnership, the compromise has to essentially be how we improve the terms and conditions of these persons' employment as close as possible to that of established workers in a manner that is sustainable. And that involves a number of things. How we agree on a pension formula for them, for example. How we agree on the vacation, etc., etc., etc. So that is what the process.
And that is what you were told, that you were going to bankrupt the country. And here is the Attorney General, Cinti daughter, when conscience took over, and she then thought it was wise to be straight up with the people.
But let's be straight. We're going to be straight with the nation. Contract work and pension reform must go together. Because we commit to pay the retroactive pension, and we are doing so. We understand the import of the ruling of the court. But so as not to do severe damage, perhaps even irreparable damage to our economy in the long run, we must work out a pension plan going forward that's sustainable. Because as it stands now, when people retire, they are entitled to NIS, that's public servants I mean, they are entitled to NIS plus government pension, and government pension is a non-contributory pension, which means the government alone pays everything into the pension fund, plus under the NIS law, the government pays 6% into the NIS, into the National Insurance Fund. So going forward, that will be a really hefty sum that the IMF and everybody else have already warned is not sustainable going forward as it is. Plus, if we regularize contract workers across the board without at the same time treating with pension reform, what do? We bloat the public service. We expand the public service, and in so doing, the amount of people who would be eligible for pension.
You see, you were warned. Your government was warned, Prime Minister, but you ignored it. You scoffed at the former Prime Minister when he said it couldn't be done the way you wanted to do it. But you're a bright boy, you're a liar. So you got in there and you decide you're going to do it. You heard what Cynthia Doctor said? It could cause irreparable damage. Well, yeah, that's mash up in truth. If it says irreparable damage, it will mash it up. So after you get in there and you realize that it cannot be done, you start to run and hold your head and say, hands in the air. If you do it, you can bankrupt the country. You paid the retroactive pension, dock salaries, the frequent flying in the crowds, and the country did indeed go bankrupt. And to date, you can't revert the country back to where it was. Next clip.
So we go to our people, wherever they are, wherever we find them, whatever the day, time, or night. And they have to understand that when we say we are putting people first, this is not just a slogan. The National Democratic Congress leadership and its members live this every day. It is about you, it is about me, it is about us. So we have to understand that as we mark our 4th anniversary in office, as we look back and reflect over the last 4 years, that there's a lot of work left to be done in the development and the building of this country. And there's no point in time in any country's history where you could be satisfied with your growth and your development. So we have now started. The public was tired of the oppression, tired of the victimization, tired of the lies, tired of the deceit, tired of believing Grenada belonged to them, and that only one set of people could rule Grenada.
This Deacon Mitchell-led administration has presented 2 deficit budgets in 2025 and another one in 2026. I did a bit on that earlier on. The Ministry of Finance has predicted another 2 deficit for the upcoming budgets in 2027 and 28. Did you pay pension before you got to the Treasury, Prime Minister? Because I don't understand. You say after you paid pension, we come and say the budget, the Treasury was pregnant. You use the money you met in the Treasury to pay the pension. What is this? Is bound to lie? On entering office, the Deacon Mitchell-led administration met in excess of $500 million as reserves in the Consolidated Fund. Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, they went on spending the monies like there was no tomorrow, on a spending spree. And with the continued drop in revenue, both tax and non-tax revenue, inflation climbing, a wage bill that is $67.5 million more than the previous administration annually, and $337 million more in an average 5-year period. We can't seem to hold our heads above water. The country is drowning, the government is broke, and as a result, the government has now been higher purchasing our infrastructure, rehabilitation, and maintenance. With his fancy new model, which is finance, design, build, and maintain model, all because the government has no money to pay the contractors as they go. You see, Prime Minister, that's not how a government, or that's not how you govern a country. That's not how you manage a business, or a household for that matter. You don't just spend all your money on recurrent expenditure all at once, and especially your reserves. That's why it's called reserves. You spend all the money. Next clip.
The second announcement. We want you, the people, to write the manifesto for the National Democratic Congress in the next election. So how we will do that? Starting in July and August, we will go to all of the polling divisions throughout Petit Martinique, Carriacou, and Grenada, and we will meet with you in each constituency, in each parish, and we will ask you to tell us what you want done in your village, in your polling division, in your constituency. We will write that down. We will put it together, and then we will come back and present it to you as the manifesto of the people, co-authored by you, for you, and for the development of Grenada for the next 5 years. So when I tell you you are writing your manifesto, you understand, and I'm saying there will be no change in government for the next 5 years. There will be no change in the party that is going to run this country for the next 5 years. Because you, the people of Grenada, have chosen, you've seen the work over the last 5 years. You've seen the energy over the last 5 years. You've seen the empathy and the care over the last 5 years. You've seen if we've fallen short that we accept our blame, we accept the criticism, and we put on our boots to try again. So when you write the manifesto, you are doing so understanding that the National Democratic Congress will be in office come 2027 to 2032.
Now, if there was ever Mama Guy, that is Mama Guy. You, the people that write the manifesto, can't come with bucket trucks picking fruits in the mountain anymore. Can't come with cooler trailers across the island to store farmers' produce. Farmers don't even have produce these days. We importing every single fruit, vegetable, and ground provision. Every single one. So they don't even need this way, but it never happened. So now you're going to be writing to Mama Guy, you and make you feel you're in something. That's Mama Guy. That's not going to happen. But it's a thing these days, with the Prime Minister trying to throw shades on the former Prime Minister and the administration, former administration. And instead of looking into the camera, or turning the camera on himself, rather, to take a selfie, instead of looking in the mirror, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, you looking at everybody else. But these days you seem to be talking on yourself. You mean a fresher, younger, inept, and incompetent Mitchell is what we got. We do know that there is a lot of work that needs to be done. Correct. Because for the past 4 years, you did nothing sustainable. No major capital projects. Now, a capital project is a large-scale, high-cost investment used to build, acquire, or significantly improve long-term physical assets. These long-term assets are critical for an administration's strategic goal. Deliver value over many years and are typically capitalized and reciprocated rather than expensed all at once. Imagine Leo the liar talking about lies and deceit, where he is king liar. We have the tapes. Bring yours. Bring your tapes on the former administration saying these things and doing these things. We have yours. we're ready to compare. The people of Petit Martinique, Carriacou, and Grenada will not be fooled this time around. When the people write the manifesto, who is delivering what in the manifesto? You all are incapable of delivering. The 16 novices sitting in the cabinet of Grenada for 4 years, no improvement, but a cabinet / administration riddled with corruption and fraud, from bribery to embezzlement and plain old thieving, crooks and conmen in high places. Once bitten, twice shy. Grenada, have you seen the work over the last 5 years? Have you seen the empathy and care the Prime Minister is speaking about over the past 5 years? Here's what we've seen.
We also expect to have officials from the Ministry of Agriculture, Lands, as well as the Ministry of Health to address this issue surrounding these horses which were illegally, wrongfully imported without any permits into the country and which were diseased and had to be put down so that the public hears the facts, not the sensations. And I want to emphasize this. The importation of animals into Grenada without a permit is a criminal offense. And worse yet, the importation of animals that are diseased into the country puts the entire country at risk. And I'm unapologetic about the actions taken by the officials of the ministry. The only thing I'm a little disappointed in is that they did not themselves respond and explain to the public why they did what they had to do in the interest of protecting the public.
And a government, a parliament, cannot raise people's children for them. It cannot parent people's children for them. And it cannot instill values in them. The young man who's alleged to have perpetrated this act, he too has a family. And what have they put in him? What values have they put in him so that violence to the point of a homicide is something that he will engage in? So I'm not going to get up and suggest that any government, any legislator, any parliament is going to solve domestic violence. It will not. And pretending to do so is going to be hypocritical, and you will have more violence.
Grenada, have you seen Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell and his team accept any blame? Accept criticism from the enemies of progress?
Going to relent. And I think it's important for the citizens to continue supporting the government, continue supporting the MPs, now more than ever. The naysayers, the enemies of progress will come up with all kinds of distractions to make us look away, to pull persons down, personal attacks, allegations of this, allegations of that. But at the end of the day, I think Grenadians can judge for themselves whether people care about them, whether they're hardworking and respectful and humble, and whether they mean the best for them. We may not always get it right, but I think, as I said, we are not afraid of criticism. That's why we subject ourselves to the citizens in the town halls, in the village meetings, in the community meetings, by walking the streets, by going on the block, by doing a program like this. I could be wrong. I don't know that there's any Prime Minister who submits himself to the calls. They may have a radio program where they may oftentimes be given information, but I'm here as much as I can every week to answer your questions, to answer your calls, and where necessary to take action and to follow up. So thank you for the opportunity to serve.
Folks, as per usual, time is on us. Time has passed. So that's a wrap on today's episode of Simon Says. It's always a pleasure conversing with you, trying to keep them honest. Thank you for viewing yet another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon. See you next week, same time, same place. But remember, a better Grenada is possible.